Ok. Benissimo. Bene, dear Tram friends, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I'm glad to welcome you to another appointment in this international cycle of video conferences dedicated to tramways and other means of transportation. Today's presentation will be made by Peter Haseldine from England, but it will not be about England, rather about Italy. Indeed, he made a long travel like Giro d'Italia in 1970 and visited many tramways and trolleybus networks in Italy. And tonight he will present us some, I am sure there are beautiful photographs, historic photographs. The presentation will be done in English, and at the end of the evening, there will be a space for any questions in English or in Italian. In every moment, you can use the chat as usual during the presentation. And I remind you that the complete program of the forthcoming presentation until the end of the year is available on our internet site. And the next one is scheduled for Tuesday, the 6th of May. I will take a break for the holidays, Easter and other bank holidays in Italy. And we'll meet again on Tuesday, the 6th of May. And that presentation will deal about tramways and trolleybuses in Europe. In 1974 will be titled Cavalcade by a Young Australian in Europe, and that will be a historic presentation too. It will be made by Paul Nicholson, that is here tonight too. Thank you. Before giving the floor to Peter, I repeat everything in Italian. Cari amici del Tram, buonasera. Benvenuti a un'altra conferenza di questo ciclo internazionale dedicato ai mezzi di trasporto. Questa sera c'è Peter Haseldine dall'Inghilterra, che è una persona molto conosciuta per le sue fotografie, molto belle fotografie dei trasporti, quindi sicuramente questa sera ne vedremo delle belle. E la presentazione parlerà di un viaggio che Peter fece nel 1970, quindi un bel po' di tempo fa, in Italia, e dove visitò quasi tutte le città tranviarie e filoviarie. Dunque la presentazione sarà fatta in inglese, alla fine della serata ci sarà spazio per domande eventuali, ma nel frattempo potete anche usare la chat quando volete. Il programma delle prossime presentazioni è disponibile sul sito internet e c'è il programma completo fino alla fine dell'anno. La prossima, dopo un periodo di pausa per le vacanze pasquali e i vari ponti che abbiamo in Italia, sarà martedì 6 maggio e si proseguirà con diciamo questo momento storico, perché avremo una presentazione fatta da un giovane australiano che nel 1974 si fece una cavalcata, come dice lui, nelle varie città d'Europa, e vedremo anche per l'occasione delle belle foto. Grazie, e ora do la parola a Peter. Peter, the floor now goes to you when you want.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, Roberto. Yes.
You're welcome. You can share the screen when you want.
Right.
Okay. Fine.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You may start.
Fine. Good. Oh, full screen. There.
Yeah.
Now it's better. Good, good. And good evening to everybody. And I'm going back to the Italy of 55 years ago when I was 21 and I decided to make a 5-week tour of Italy while it was possible for me to do so. Why go to Italy in 1970? It was because I noticed that, in common with the trend throughout Europe at that time, the trolleybus was disappearing. Since 1965, there had been 11 trolleybus systems in Italy which closed: Catania, Palermo, Lido di Venezia, Trapani, Brescia, Cuneo, Pavia, Pisa, Mestre, Padova, and Vicenza, and I feared that before not too long, many more would also disappear. So I went to Italy in 1970. I saw 35 trolleybus systems and, of course, the trams. And since then, of those 35, 24 closed, but three have subsequently reopened in Roma, Genova, and Avellino. So without any more talking from me, let's start. This is the tour I made. I arrived by train in Torino, of course. And then I went down to Bologna, Modena, Parma, then across to Trieste, then down the Adriatic coast to Bari, and then up this way through Roma to Genova, San Remo, and back home that way. So please forgive my Italian pronunciation of some of the towns. So what better place to start than Torino, where Roberto is broadcasting from. Here we are outside Porto Nuovo station, Via Arsenale, a typical Torino tram, arrives at Stazione Porto Nuovo. And in those days, the track in the centre of Torino was very interesting. And so at the junction of Via Garibaldi and 20 Settembre, here the tram has to come out and go over to the opposite track in order to come back. And here we are in Via Po. I said in the preamble that Roberto sent you that I have just chosen 3 pictures from each tramway and 3 pictures from each trolleybus system, because otherwise we would be here for a very long time. So I've had to select 3, and they are not necessarily the most interesting vehicles or the most interesting routes, but they are 3 of my favorites from each system. So I hope you enjoy them too. Of course, not strictly a Torino tram, but there was also the rack line to Superga, which is still the same today. Of course, there was a trolleybus system in Torino also, and your society has published a very good book on the subject. The trolleybus, of course, was very much a periphery to the important tramway system, but there were 3 routes operated by the municipal undertaking. And here we are at Lingotto, and we see number 1023, which was a Fiat 672 of 1942. There were 20 of these, and they were often to be found on route number 34, which was the main route for trolleybuses in Torino. Here's one of the articulated, one of the Fiat 2405 from 1958 with a Fiberti bodywork, turning on route 34. And right down to the south of the system, beyond Lingotto, there is an extension to Nicolino, where this Fiat 2401 of 1953 is seen turning on the loop. Of course, there were two other trolleybus systems in Torino, one to the east and one to the west. And the one to the west was the line that went to Rivoli. This replaced a tram in 1955. It was 11 kilometers long. It was a very frequent service, sometimes up to 5 minutes in the peak. It was completely straight road all the way to Rivoli and was operated by 24 of these Fiat 2405s of 1955. They also had some two-axle trolleybuses, but I did not see those in service. This is a typical view I took from the front of a trolleybus going towards Rivoli, of showing one on its way back to Torino. On arrival at Rivoli, this is the Rivoli terminus. On the right, you can see the trolleybus station, built specially for it, and very similar in architectural style to the trolleybus station which was in Torino. But because of my limit of 3 pictures per system, I have not shown you the trolleybus system, the trolleybus station in Torino. As well as the main line to Rivoli, there were 2 branches which went to the north and south, part way along. The one to the north went to Collegno, where this view is taken, and the one to the south to Grugliasco, which is noted for its grissini production. On the Collegno line, you'll see that the wiring was single track, and this view here shows it coming off the single track wire from Collegno to join the main line of the main line from Torino to Rivoli. These 2 branches to Collegno and to Grugliasco were not so frequent, only approximately hourly. The other line to the east of Torino was the line from Torino to Chieri, operated by the Industriale, Auto Industriale, a private company, and the line opened in 1951 with these 11 Fiat 668s with Viberti bodywork. Here it is in Piazza Vittorio Veneto. The route to Chieri was very fine for scenery, with lots of twists and turns on the road, and some beautiful scenery on its way up into the hills, completely opposite to the flat scenery of the road to Rivoli. And on arrival in Chieri, it came through this arch before arriving at the final terminus. A very Italian feature here, you'll see that the stop sign is suspended from the wire. So we leave Torino and we start our journey. And the first town I visited was Alessandria. Alessandria trolleybus system opened in 1952 and it closed in 1974. When I arrived there, there were 2 routes, the 1/2, which was an east-west route, and a 3/4 circular route. The 4, the anti-clockwise circular, had already closed. Alessandria opened with 8 of these Fiat 668s with Casaro bodywork in 1951. And this is one on the, I've forgotten the name of the, sorry. But the point of note was, of course, that in common with a number of Italian provincial systems, they had single track wiring at the outer end because the services were not so frequent. And you see this lovely line of concrete traction poles with the bracket arms supporting the wiring. In the city centre on the circular route, the number 3, this trolleybus was unique. This had been acquired earlier that year in 1970. It's a Fiat 668, and it came from Catania in Sicily. Talking about Sicily, you may ask, why did I not go to Cagliari in Sardinia? And the answer is that it was a long way to go, and I would have wasted a lot of time if I did not find anything in operation, because I knew that the trolleybuses in Sicily had closed. And so I thought to myself, Sardinia also being an island, there's a strong possibility that the trolleybuses will have closed there also. Little did I know that they would still be operating today in 2025. This is out at the Sanatorio terminus of Route 1 at the northern end of the Alessandria system. From Alessandria, I went to Pavia, and I found the trolleybuses had closed. It's difficult to imagine these days that before the days of internet and electronic communications, it was very difficult to find out information about what was the current state of operation of trams or trolleybuses anywhere. You just had to go and find for yourself. And so I took a train, a steam train from Pavia to Cremona, and you can see the steam from my engine blowing out there behind Cremona station. And in Cremona, I found a typical 2-route small town Italian trolleybus system. This is one of their 5 Fiat 2405s with Menerini body that they acquired in 1964, still looking very smart. There were 2 routes, as I said, and they went down, both routes went down Corso Garibaldi before dividing to go their separate ways. To show the older centre of Cremona, and it's also good to show a rear view of a trolleybus from time to time, because the rear view is the important bit. It shows what it's all about. It shows the poles and the retrievers. From Cremona, I went to Parma. Now, Parma appeared to be in the throes of closing when I was there. 2 or 3 routes had closed. There again, as I say, little did I know that 55 years later, Parma would be a thriving trolleybus system in Italy, but you're not to know these things at the time. Before I had arrived, Route 2 had closed already, and on the right you can see a diesel bus on Route 2, which had taken over from the trolleybus. The trolleybus on Route 1 on the left here, it's on its way to the railway station, and I am walking down from the railway station to the city centre of Parma. When I was in Parma, the services were operated by 16 Fiat 2401s of 1953, of which this is one. There was an east-west route, the number 3, along the main road that goes through Parma, and this was at the Crocetta terminus. You see the ladies here looking very smart with their clothes and hairstyles from the early 1970s. And this is at the other end of Route 3 on its way to San Lazzaro, showing there was not much other traffic around in those days. The next place on the list down the railway line was Modena. Modena still runs trolleybuses today, and you can take a view outside the railway station here today, as I did then. Modena then had 3 trolleybus routes, the 5, 6 and the 7. And this is one of their Menarini Fiat 2411s of 1964. In other words, the latest additions to the fleet at that time. It's the middle of the day, it's lunchtime, and Italy is at home having its lunch. Meanwhile, I am walking on the streets taking photographs. You can feel the heat of the day, and I'm in the shade of the colonnaded streets of Modena. Until very recently, the trolleybuses of Modena used to go through this arch near the cathedral. But with the advent of battery trolleybuses now, the routes have been diverted on a parallel road, which does not have wiring, but also does not have the interesting feature of going through this arch. Further down the line, we get to Bologna. Now, I had prepared myself, obviously, a sort of flexible timetable to visit all these systems, and I took advice from a number of people, well, very few really, people I knew who had been, to how much time I should allow in each system. And British enthusiasts will be aware of somebody called John Price. And I asked him, and he said, "Oh, Bologna, you'll be lucky if you find 1 route running." So I did not allow much time. When I arrived in Bologna, I found 6 routes running. And so I had to spend more time in Bologna than I had planned. But very enjoyable it was too. A beautiful city centre and interesting routes to the suburbs. This trolleybus here, number 1434, is one of 3 that they bought from Padova a few years earlier. And latterly, they saw service in San Remo, where I photographed them a few years later. The route to Casalecchio was interesting, went through some open countryside before arriving in the town of Casalecchio, and was usually worked by these articulated trolleybuses. And in complete contrast in scenery to the city centre in Bologna and the old town of Casalecchio, I shall take you to a housing estate, which of its vintage, I think, is very typical. And this is where the new Bologna tramway is being built, I think, at the moment, because the trolleybus line was withdrawn about a year ago to facilitate construction of the new tramway. And now we go to Milano. Now, how can you compress the Milano tramways into 3 photographs? It's impossible. So I'll show you my favorites, as I said. I was in Milano, of course, in June 1970, and I was very lucky because I saw somebody reading a newspaper. in a cafe, and I could read the headline said, "Tram routes to close." And so as soon as I had drunk my coffee, I went to a newspaper shop to buy the newspaper to read the article for myself. And I read that in 2 weeks after I was there, 3 or 4 tram routes in Milan would be closing. And so I concentrated my photography on those routes, as you can imagine. And one of the routes to close was the number 12, which went to Piazza Miani in the southwest of the city, and it went along the canal. And so I like this photograph because Motta is, of course, an Italian brand, an Italian ice cream and food brand. And you have these 2 wonderful Peter Witt trams from Milan, the Fantotto class, and the very typical Milano street paving of the big stone sets. In the other direction at this point, the number 12 came out from Piazza Miani, came out there, crossed right onto the other track, and then came back again. And you can see the wiring for the tram allows it to do just that. And so another view beside the canal in Milan, because I believe that this section of tram no longer runs. And this was, of course, with the Route 19 as well as Route 12. The trams still run beside the canal, but I believe they now start around there, having crossed over the canal on a bridge. The other, I call it another system, the interurban lines, of course, in Milan were a wonderful feature to behold. I had read before I went that the lines to Limbiate and to Carrate would be closing very soon. And so I knew I must spend some time photographing them. Little did I know that they would last, both of them, about another 50 years. And the Limbiate line, of course, is being reconstructed at the moment. This particular tram, it's got a name like Abbiata Grasso, probably saying it completely wrong, but it dates from 1914. And it has 4 motors on it, which, of course, as it had to pull 3 trailers, it needed the power. This has worked its way in from Carrate, and it's on its way to the terminus at Via Valtellina. Two views on the interurban lines. This is on the line to Limbiate. You can see I'm taking a photograph from the back platform of one traveling in the other direction. And you can see this nice feature, each of the 2, the trailer and the motor car going the other way, have a conductor in full uniform who's just making sure that all passengers are safely on or off, and he's going to blow the whistle and the tram will recommence its journey to Limbiate. Here's a busy scene on the other line, the Carrate line. I forget the name of the junction, but this is where the junction is for the line to Milanino, which has closed. This is the evening rush hour, as you can see from the clock. It says it's 6:45. The Milan trolleybuses, of course, always they played a second role to the trams, and they still do, but an interesting network in its own right. And by the castle in Milan, this was the inner circle, the 96-97 route. And these must have been thought very, very modern for their day, with the windscreen with the shape it was. These were some Fiat 2405s with Liberty bodywork of 1957, and they always seem to be found on the inner circle. But the inner circle was a very short route. It was only about 4 stops and you'd got back to where you started from. Also, I have a soft spot for these Fiat 600 multipla taxis. I used to like those. I never rode in one because I couldn't afford to, but they always appealed to me. Right in the south of the system, Route 95 was almost, I believe, the start of an outer circle, if you like. It went from Stazione Rogoredo in the southeast across the south in a straight line. What I didn't realize was that only a few weeks before I arrived, this Route 95 had been extended further to the southeast and stopped almost in the next street to Piazza Miani, where you saw the Route 12 tram, which I showed you a little while ago. And so Trolleybus 95 and Tram 12 didn't operate beside each other for very long. But this particular vehicle is very interesting because it's an Alfa Romeo 110, which was new to Rome in 1941. An interesting year, 1941. But of course, it was requisitioned by the Germans and it saw service in Esslingen. After the war, it didn't return to Rome, it returned to Milano, which is where it is here, and it was rebodied by Reggiano. So an interesting vehicle, and I think unique in the Milan fleet. At in the northern inner suburbs of Milan, at Bovese Nord, we have a 92 trolleybus passing an 82. The 92, of course, use the articulateds, which we normally associate with the 90 and 91 circular. And the 82 had one of these Fiats with Casaro bodywork, which were built to an integral design, which was marketed as Tubo car. So north from Milan, we go to Como, the beautiful city of Como, located on the lake of that name. And that too had a trolleybus system. The Como trolleybus system opened in 1938. It had a route to the Swiss border at Chiasso. It had a couple of routes in the city, and it had a long route to the southeast to Cantu, which opened later. It had a very varied fleet, and this one here, number 5, is an Azotti Fraschini of 1938 with a Stanger body, which was refronted later, but it dates from 1938. Along the lakeside here, on the route to Cernobbio and Maglianico, here we see number 34, which is another Isotta Fraschini, this one with Caproni bodywork, dating from 1947. And you'll see the very typical heat haze over the Lake of Como on the right. This is on the route to Chiasso, the Italian-Swiss border. And this is one of their 3-axle Alfa Romeos with SIAI bodywork, which were always rather favourites of mine, and I've found them in a number of Italian systems. From Como, I moved to Bergamo. Bergamo opened, well, the first system opened in 1921, and then it closed, and a new system opened in 1950, which was this one. And at one time it had 6 or 7 routes. But the first closure took place in 1967. And by the time I got there in 1970, we were just down to routes 1 and 5. This is on Route 1 in the city centre approaching the railway station. And they had 14 of these Alfa Romeo 800s of 1952. It's a little confusing to say it goes from the railway station to the funicular, because when you get to the funicular, as I did, and rode on the funicular, you then find that there's another funicular goes even further up into the older parts of Bergamo. Route 5 was technically an interurban line to a town called Caesariate, but in perhaps Italian style or of that period. After I'd taken my photograph that you saw there of the trolleybus on Route 1, they all went on strike for 2 hours, which is a very Italian thing to do. And so I took the opportunity to write my postcards, because in 1970, you didn't send emails to people to say you were on holiday, you wrote postcards. So I bought my postcards and sent them. And by the time I'd done that, the trolleybus service had resumed after the strike of 2 hours. And so here is one taking up service on Route 5. It's come from the depot and it's about to work on the interurban service to Caesariate. And so this is a view taken from the front window of one, showing one leaving Caesariate. Because the great thing was of trolleybuses in those days, you could sit up the front with the driver, just as that person is doing there. And often the driver was in the middle, and so you could sit both sides. And when, like me, you were very short of time and you were trying to ride as far as you could and take as many photographs as you could, the front seat beside the driver was very useful. From Bergamo, Verona. Beautiful city, beautiful trolleybus system, or rather 2 trolleybus systems. There was a town system and the interurban system. And this is a view outside the railway station, a very 1930s style Italian public building of that era. This is one of their Fiat 2405s of 1963. 1965 seems to be the turning point for trolleybuses in Italy. Until that time, they were being built and systems were expanding, and then after then, they started to close. But you could take a nice view beside the river. And this is one of their Fiat 2411s of 1964. And down in the south of the city, I found this imposing gateway. Now, for me, one of the high points of the trip was the interurban trolleybuses in Verona. I had been warned that this was quite a special undertaking, and so I allowed myself 2 days to ride, walk, and photograph as appropriate, because the frequencies for an interurban system, as you can imagine, were not very good. All services were approximately hourly. They went to San Bonifacio in the east, and this branch is Soave, where the wine comes from, where you can see this trolleybus here. They went to Gretzana in the north. They went to Treniago in the north, and then a separate line went to Domeliara in the northwest. It replaced a provincial tramway between 1958 and 1961, and really you could argue that it didn't really have a very good business case. The infrastructure required for an infrequent trolleybus service could not really be justified. But as an enthusiast, I'm very pleased that it was built. So this is the Soave branch of the San Bonifacio line. And this is a very peaceful scene on the line to Treniago. I was quite lucky here. I decided that this was where I would wait to take my picture of the trolleybus, and some people were harvesting peaches in the field nearby, and I was offered a peach, which I accepted. It was very kind of them. And you can see there's no other traffic, and I sat down beside the road, and I knew when to stand up because I could watch the movement in the trolleybus wires as the vehicle approached, still about 5 minutes away. It's really very peaceful rural scene, with the only sounds being the noise of the people picking peaches and the clatter of the trolleybus wires as they swung on the hangers. The route to the northwest to Domeliara was perhaps the most beautiful of all for scenery. Unfortunately, it had the least frequent route, being approximately every 90 minutes. And this proved to be the last one of the day, and in that direction. And I was going to take the last one of the day back into Verona, where I was staying. And I was very disappointed when a diesel bus turned up. But the crew were very friendly, and they'd seen me photographing, and they wanted to know all about the hobby and what I was doing. Oh, they said the trolleybuses are no good. The trolleybuses are rubbish. These diesel buses are much better. Where are you staying? They asked me, and I told them the name of my hotel. Ah, they said, we can take you back to your hotel in this diesel bus, and we couldn't take you back on a trolleybus, could we? Because it's fixed to the wires. And with that, they kindly took me back to my hotel in their bus. Well, from Verona, I travelled further east. I went to Padova and found the trolleybuses had closed, I think only a few weeks before I got there. So I had to consign my baggage and take it out again. Then I got to Vicenza, the same story. So I carried on further east to Trieste, where the trams had closed only a few weeks before I got there, earlier in 1970. But the line to Opicina was running, of course. And we know the good news that it has recently reopened after having been closed for 8.5 years. And it still looks very much the same now, I believe, as it did then. So here is the Opicina tramway in Piazza Dalmazia, which is the present terminus, the temporary terminus, before it's re-extended down to Piazza Oberdan, which I believe is the plan. Here it is on the funicular section, overlooking the harbour in Trieste. And looking down on the harbour again on the surface line from the top of the funicular, where it travels on the level to Opicina town. Trieste, of course, also had a trolleybus system. And I see that we have a member of the audience who comes from Trieste, so I hope you will enjoy this. Trieste had 6 or 7 trolleybus routes. but sadly they were closing, and I was there on a Sunday. And on a Sunday, I asked an inspector, and he told me that only Route 20 to Muggia was operated with trolleybuses on a Sunday. So I did Route 20 to Muggia. And the fleet of Trieste trolleybuses had this distinctive bodywork by Cantieri Reuniti dell'Adriatico of Monfalcone, which to the English viewers will see the funny side if I say this translates roughly as Adriatic boat builders of Monfalcone. That's an in-joke for English people only. No one else will understand it. But they had distinctive look. It was because I think that Trieste having a special economic status after the referendum in 1956, that it was to encourage local industry, I believe. But they were a three-axle Alfa Romeos of 1952 to 1956. I include this because it's a very Italian scene. There's been a motor accident, but fortunately, the trolleybus has got the initiative to go up on the pavement and get round the problem. Now, from what I've seen of modern trolleybuses throughout the world these days, that would be just out of the question these days. They wouldn't dare deviate so far from the wiring. That would be quite beyond them. I visited the reopened system in Avellino about 2 years ago, and they wouldn't budge a centimetre from the path of the tram, trying to of the wiring, trying to pretend they're trams, I think. And here's one of the other routes in Trieste. This is on route number 10. It's come through one of the Galleria, and you can see in the foreground the tram tracks from the tramway, which had been abandoned not very long before this photograph was taken. From Trieste, we go to Ferrara, another typical small Italian town trolleybus system, from the railway station to the city centre, and then in branches into two, to Santo Giorgio and to Portomare. All the trolleybuses were the short length Fiat 2404, because as you'll see, there were some very tight corners, which was on the depot route, so they had to be short vehicles to cope with the sharp corners. This particular one has Menarini bodywork. The system opened in 1938, but had to close again because of war damage, and it reopened in 1945 with exactly the same routes. It never changed its routing, and it closed in 1975. Here it is, right in the historic city centre. And here it is on the San Giorgio route, going round a very tight corner, and say the depot was at the end of this route. So even if the other route did not require such short wheelbase vehicles, it was necessary to get to and from the depot. Through Bologna, because we've been to Bologna before this evening, we go to Rimini. Rimini is still with us, of course, and there's the new Metromare line, which I visited last year. What the trolleybuses in Rimini no longer do is to go to the city centre of Piazza Tre Martiri, which is where this photograph is taken. Rimini, of course, is the it opened in 1939. They only have the one route, which serves the seaside resort area all the way down to Riccione. And so this is one of their Fiat 2401s of 1954. And behind, you can just see perhaps a more interesting looking trolleybus. And I made sure I managed to take a photograph of this because this was the only Fiat 656 I ever saw. I have a red lines appearing on my...
Stefano Alfano, mi senti? Stefano deve avere inavvertitamente condiviso lo schermo.
Yes, I'll continue, shall I?
Yeah. Go on.
Yes.
There must be someone that doesn't see that it's doing something on his screen and interfere with you.
Right, so this is a Fiat 656 of 1938. We still have these lines. Oh. Is there anything we can do about this, Roberto?
I tried to do something. I don't know what, but exactly what to do, but just a moment. That's very strange. I've never seen nothing like that. But if there's someone else that's drawing on his screen, I think that what you can do is to exit for a moment and then enter in again.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Try to exit and re-entering. Okay. Now try to share the screen, your screen again. No.
No, I need to... Just a minute.
Yeah, you have to find your presentation.
Yes. Right now.
That's it. You find the exact...
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Fine. Right. Now, full screen again.
Yeah.
And get rid of this at the top. Good. I think we're back.
Yeah.
Right. Good. Right. So this is the Fiat 656 of 1938 in Rimini. And of course, Rimini being a... There we are. Rimini being a seaside resort, it would be wrong not to take a photograph of a trolleybus beside the Adriatic Sea. So this is the short working loop at Miramare. So south from Rimini, we come to Ancona. Ancona opened in 1949 and had 3 or 4 urban routes, most of which were run by these delightful Fiat 668 with Stanger bodywork. And this one here is seen turning outside the railway station. One of the nice features about the trolleybus routes in Ancona was when they got to the outer end of the route, the wiring went to single track. And this is on Route 3 on the line to Posatora. And the line to Posatora also gave some beautiful views over the Adriatic Sea. Trolleybuses still run in Ancona, but I believe you have to be very lucky to see them in operation. Of course, Ancona was another town that had 2 trolleybus systems. There was the urban system, which you are seeing now, and also the interurban system, the line that went to Falconara. And the trolleybuses of the Ancona-Falconara line were these wonderful 3-axle Alfa Romeos of 1949. And they worked about every 15 minutes along the coast to the town of Falconara. This is one in Ancona itself. And this is a view taken out the front, as you can see, but shows a typical section of the route with the sea on the left and a rather uninteresting main road linking Ancona with Falconara. There was a branch off the main line to Falconara to a settlement called Colle Marino, and this is a rear view of one descending the hill to the main line. So Falconara is to the left and Ancona is to the right when this trolleybus has arrived at the bottom of the hill. The next system down the coast was Civitanova. This was, of course, the smallest trolleybus system in Italy at the time. It opened as a tramway in 1911 with trams numbered 1, 2 and 3. And then they were replaced by trolleybuses in 1956, and the trolleybuses were numbered 4, 5 and 6. Only one trolleybus was needed to run the service on the day I was there. But I know that in 4 weeks' time, you will be having a presentation from Paul Nicholson in Australia, and he went to Civitanova, and he will be showing you some more views, I'm quite sure. This is the trolleybus of the day, running around the terminal loop at the Civitanova Marche, the town by the railway. And the purpose of the line, of course, was to link the old town of Civitanova on the hill with the railway station at Civitanova Marche, about 5 kilometers distance. Now, trolleybuses on batteries these days are all over the place, but in those days it was quite a novelty. And here's one running on battery for a very short section while it crosses the electrified railway line in Civitanova Marche. Most of the line looked like this, a country lane through the countryside with single track trolleybus wiring. So there was just a loop really at each end to enable the two trolleybuses to turn. A great shame when this line closed in 1974. The next line down the Adriatic coast, and one that closed in 1977, was the line from Fermo to Porto San Giorgio. This had replaced a railway in 1958, and that explains why the road is so wide, because the railway, or light railway, or perhaps it was almost a tramway, went along beside this road. And so when the railway closed, the trolleybus had a very wide road to travel along. It was run by the Adriatic Apennine Railway Company, the FAA, and it was electrified to 1200 volts, I think, hence the equipment on the roof, as you might expect for an interurban trolleybus line of this length. It was 8 kilometers from the coast and the railway line at Porto San Giorgio, and when it got to the hilltop town of Fermo, there were a couple of urban routes which were very infrequent and single track, which I managed to see a little. And this is turning from the Fermo terminus, and the portal on the left here is when the railway was operating this route, it couldn't do the sharp turn of the trolleybus, and so it used to go into the hillside and then came out along here. I believe that entrance portal is still there to this day. But the trolleybus wiring, which I drew, was almost replicating the track of the light railway. Some very interesting arrangements. So that was Fermo to Porto San Giorgio. Going down the coast still further, Chieti. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the city centre terminus in Fermo. It did not go into the old town itself. It stopped at this square outside. Down the coast of Chieti, where of course the trolleybus is still run and still very much the same route, a delightful little system, also run by the Adriatic Apennine Railway Company, or rather it was then. And it's interesting that in the destination screen, it told you its fleet number 1, and it's the trolleybus route of Chieti. Now, most passengers are not the slightest bit interested in the fleet number of the trolleybus that they're travelling on. Neither are they particularly interested in the fact that it's a trolleybus route of Chieti, because they know where they are, and the destination is down there in small lettering. But I find that quite pleasing that the trolleybus route of Chieti should be so prominently displayed. It opened in 1950, having replaced a tramway which was built in 1905, and it opened with numbers 1 to 7, which were these classic Fiat 668s with Stanger bodywork. It twists its way up to the old city, some quite fine views. And it stopped at the, I believe it's a cemetery, it's a Sastandana. The narrow streets in Chieti are very interesting for trolleybus operation, but restricting myself to 3 views per system, I'm not showing you any this evening. Back on the train, a long way down the coast, we get to Bari, which was the furthest to the southeast in my travels. Bari, the wiring is still up, but I don't think a trolleybus has run there for many years. It opened in 1939. It grew to be quite a big system. When I got there, it was down to about 5 routes, all operated by these Alfa Romeo 910s of 1958. This is, of course, outside the railway station. Down in the south of Italy, travelling practices are perhaps a little more, or perhaps some people don't pay their fare like they might do in the north of Italy, shall we say. But these two boys are clearly enjoying themselves on the back of the trolleybus. Let's hope they live to the end of the journey. And an interesting feature of the Bari trolleybus system was the route beyond Carbonara to Sicily, where the wiring is still up because Route 4 is supposed to be reopening one day. Whether it ever will, I think is most unlikely, but it might do. When Route 4 became a trolleybus route, obviously it was decided to use the old single track tramway brackets, and so the route remained single track for trolleybuses. If the trolleybuses adhered to the timetable correctly, this scene would not have happened. But remarkably, and it doesn't often happen that I'm in the right place at the right time, but something was not quite right that day. And as you can see, 2 trolleybuses met where it was inconvenient. It took them a long time to decide who should depole to let the other one pass. And I don't think they were too happy that I had photographed the event. And now we go to Avellino, on our way over to Naples now. Avellino, the system opened in 1940 and then reopened in, the system opened in 1947, 9 kilometers, linking Atripalda with Mercoiano through the city of Avellino. And you probably know that the trolleybus system in Avellino closed in 1973, and then it was reopened about 10 years ago. And the trolleybuses ran for 3 months and they've closed again. The current proposal, I believe, is that the trolleybuses will be fitted with batteries and they will recreate the original route from Atripalda to Mercoiano. But we shall see what happens. Who knows? Trolleybus number 8 here is one of 3 Fiat 668s acquired from Salerno after the opening. There was a financial tie-up of some sort between the trolleybuses in Salerno and Avellino. And this is outside the railway station with a typical Italian trolleybus with the driver sitting in the centre. There are some very rural and picturesque sections of the Avellino trolleybus system. This is on its way to Mercoiano. And when it got to Mercoiano, there was a reverser. It went up this street with the no entry sign and then reversed back into onto a little platform before recommencing its journey back to Avellino. From Avellino, I went to Salerno. I had no idea that the trolleybus system in Salerno was so extensive. No idea at all, because I say information was very limited, and I studied the cities on the Michelin guide, which showed tram and trolleybus routes. But it was very annoying for me because I took the train from Avellino to Salerno, and when we got to a place called Mercato San Severino, we had to get off the train and get on a railway replacement bus service. As soon as we turned out the station, I saw trolleybus wiring, and I had no idea. I did not know that the trolleybuses went to Mercato San Severino, and if they had, I would not have got on the rail replacement bus. I would have got on a trolleybus, but I was so ignorant in those days. We knew so little. There we are. So Salerno, an enormous trolleybus system with routes to the south to Battipaglia, 32 kilometers to the north to Pompeii. Yes, the same Pompeii with the ancient remains, and some town routes as well. So here's a view overlooking the harbour at Salerno, with one of their Fiat 2405s with airfare bodywork. This is on the line to Pompeii, and if you look very closely here through the cloud, you'll see Mount Vesuvius. But it's a bit cloudy. I said the line to Pompeii was 32 kilometers. I couldn't hope to photograph it all by any means, but the trolleybus is unique. This is number 264, which was acquired from Pisa, second-hand from Pisa, and was unique in the Salerno fleet. And this is the line from Mercato San Severino that I told you about. Obviously, I had to go back and do it as a trolleybus system, as a trolleybus route. And this is one of their 3-axle Alfa Romeos on its way. It's left Mercato San Severino and it's on its way back to Salerno. To Napoli. The tram system then was almost the same as it is today, but there has been some retrenchment. This is the terminus at Poggio Reale to the east, and the tram on the left is in a sort of storage stub track. The trams are very frequent. An interesting route was in Borelli, and they had a single track route along the backs of houses through private right of way, and the trams always went in convoy because that was the only way to, because of no passing loops, that was the only way to run the frequency required. Right at the other end of the system, the trams went beside the sea at Bagnoli. They no longer run to Bagnoli, but the Naples trams are still running, which is remarkable and very good news. Naples, of course, had and still has a trolleybus system. It's reduced in size since 1970. This is in the Farmero district in the west of the city, where the trolleybuses no longer run. And a feature of the Naples trolleybus system is the long, technically interurban routes, which go round the southeast of the bay, under the shadow of Vesuvius, round to Torre del Greco, with various branches off to Herculaneo and Porto San Giorgio al Cremano. That's right. And this has come down from San Giorgio, and it's joining the main line at, I believe, a place called Croce Lagno. And this is a typical view of the line round to Torre del Greco, which has since closed. But even before it closed, the frequencies had declined considerably from when I was there in 1970, when they seemed to be about every 5 minutes. But there was another trolleybus system in Napoli, the TPN, the Tranvia Provinciale Napoli. And that ran routes to the north of the city, 2 routes to the north of the city, replacing an interurban tramway. It opened, it was really the last proper Italian trolleybus system to open, well, before Lecce anyway. It opened in 1964 to Secondigliano, which is a suburb of Napoli. This is the trolleybus station and bus station very near Napoli main railway station. And what I didn't realize was that the route to Aversa, which is about 15 kilometers to the north of Napoli, had only opened about 2 or 3 months earlier in 1970, before I got there. And there was a half-hourly service of trolleybuses running from Napoli to Aversa. And this one here is seen leaving Aversa, the city of Aversa, on the main road. In Aversa, the streets were quite congested, and this quite nice scene here of one squeezing its way past the Fiat 500 and the vegetable store. Now, north of Napoli also was the town of Caserta. Caserta is where the Palace of the Kings of Napoli was, and you can see the end of the palace just on the right there. It's also the site of a naval academy, hence the gentleman in naval attire on the left. The trolleybus system opened as recently as 1961 and closed only 11 years later in 1972. They only had 8 trolleybuses, which were these Lancias with Menaridi bodywork, and almost built with very comfortable seats to interurban standards. It went, as it says on there, Capua, Santa Maria, Caserta, and Maddaloni. And here's one in Caserta. Now, this is one leaving Maddaloni, and it's quite an interesting view because I think it shows the reason why the system closed. They went bankrupt, and they went bankrupt because they were involved in a big legal dispute. It would appear that they had put some traction poles on private land instead of getting permission to do it on public land. And I think it must be these poles on the right, which are clearly a long way back from the road. And according to Andrea Cozzolino's book, they had this great legal dispute, and that bankrupted them effectively. And they were taken over by the Tranvia Provinciale Napoli, but the line closed in 1972, and the vehicles saw further service in Athens, together with a number of other vehicles from Italian systems. And I was able to photograph them in Athens in the mid-1970s. And there again, we get excited about trolleybuses on batteries now, but it was quite a novelty then. And here's one crossing the railway line with the conductor standing on the back there. waiting to jump off to put the poles back on the wire when the trolleybuses got to the other side. The people in the level crossing keeper's house on the right there were very hospitable and entertained me to a glass of wine after I'd taken this photograph of the trolleybus. It's very kind of them. I was still able to hold the camera straight afterwards. Oh, so we go to Rome. Rome, the eternal city. The photograph everybody has to take of a tram in Rome is going past the Colosseum. Sadly, the tramways in Rome at that time were in decline. They've since enjoying a revival, but they were in decline at that time. The routes past the Colosseum were on their private right of way, as you probably know. And there was a long circular route, which was the ED in the clockwise direction, but in the anti-clockwise direction, it was the number 30 bus. But there was still one more route in Rome that was about to close, and that was the 5, which went down to Garbatella in the southwest of the city, and that closed subsequent to my visit. There was another tram system in Rome. There's the Steffa, the narrow gauge, the interurban system. That went out to the east, 2 routes out to the east. This is one of their trams from Trieste, which they had acquired upon the closure of that system. And this is in the Via San Croce, showing 2 of their articulated trams. And here we're out at the Cinecittà terminus. I'm afraid all the Italians amongst you will probably be laughing at my pronunciation, but I hope you can understand what I'm trying to say. The trolleybuses in Rome in 1970 were in very sad decline. It had been a very big system. I found it was just down to 2 routes at that time, the 46 and the 47, both going to the west of the city. And this is a view of the Santa Paula terminus of Route 46. Route 46 seemed to have the older of the 2 types of trolleybuses that were still in operation then. And this is a Fiat 668 with airfare bodywork of 1954. The western end of the route of Route 46 was at Prima Valley, and this is 2 of their Lancias with Casaro bodywork of 1957 waiting at the terminus. On from Rome, Perugia. What a lovely town and what a lovely trolleybus system. And I was delighted to find these, what look much older than they are, Breda vehicles, all Breda, dating from 1949. Very distinctive style. And look at the trouble they've gone to put all those hangers on that curve to make sure it gives a really smooth ride for the trolley poles. This is outside the railway station, and in best Italian small town tradition, of course, the trolleybus links the railway station with the old town on the top of the hill. There were 3 routes in Perugia. Route 2 had closed when I got there. Route 1 was the main line, as I say, from the railway station up to the city centre, and Route 3 worked a shorter service in the centre, and showing what the very typical features of some of these small Italian towns, going through a wonderful arch in what I presume are the city walls. At the terminus of Route 3, we find this tiny trolleybus. It's a Fiat 635 with the Faresina bodywork of 1946. But when you see some of those arches and the twisty streets it has to go along, you can understand why it's so small. From one town associated with the arts to another, Firenze, Florence. In 1970, the trolleybuses still went in front of the cathedral. I don't think that is the case now. Well, the trolleybuses don't run anymore, but the new tramway certainly, I think, does not go that near to the cathedral. This is one of their 4 Fiat 668s with Stanger bodywork of 1952. This is one they acquired from Mestre in 1968. Mestre system, of course, closed in 1966, which was, well, perhaps a bit later, but a very sad loss. At that time, there was a urban cross-town route, the 23, which was the one you saw by the cathedral, and there were 2 interurban routes. Route number 7 to Fiesole, which is this route here. Fiesole, of course, very well-known route, the number 7 in Florence, was originally a tram and then became a trolleybus. And the other of the interurban routes was to Trespiano, Route 25. And you can see that this is a long way north of the city, and you can see the cathedral down in the middle of the city below there. From Florence, we go further northwest to Livorno. Livorno opened in 1935, became a very, very big system. It grew to be 11 routes in all. They had so many trolleybuses that when the war, which they didn't need to begin with, because they bought lots of vehicles and then built the routes afterwards, many of their trolleybuses were sequestrated and operated in various cities in Germany and Austria during the war. By the time I got there, it was down to 4 basic routes, which all interworked. And I remember I was able to arrive by train and leave by train, ride all the routes and take my photographs all in 1 hour, 55 minutes, which I think must be a record. I don't think I would do that so easily these days. The trolleybuses were 11 of these Fiat 2411s of 1958 to 60. And here's one in the city centre. Again, I've taken a photograph out the front window. And one of the routes went to Montenero, which was to the east of the city. And the building on the right there is the base station of the funicular, which goes up to, there's a sanctuary at Montenero on top of the hill. Further along the coast, we come to Carrara, which is noted for its marble. Basically one long trolleybus route from the city centre down to the seashore and along various seaside establishments along the coast. There was a variation at the station Some went down the main line, and others deviated via the railway station, which is the building in the background. And those which went via the railway station had the red bar across the destination. These were Fiat Alfa Romeo 920 Menerini. I'm sorry. Alfa Romeo 920 with Pistoiese bodywork of 1956. There were two of those. And this is one of the other batch, the main ones. There were 12 of these Alfa Romeo 920 with Menerini bodywork of 1955, which is when the system opened. There were various short workings along the seashore, and I was particularly lucky that the one I boarded went all the way to Marinella. And I didn't realise until I asked the driver at the end that it was only an hourly service there. So I was lucky to get so easily all the way to the end of the route to Marinella. Next, we come to La Spezia. La Spezia, the modern system there opened in 1951. Then it was routes 1, 2, and 3. It's routes 1 and 3 are still very much the same with some extensions. There were 17 of these Fiat 668s with Liberty bodywork, 1951 to 1953. And there were some of these Alfa Romeo 1000s with Casaro bodywork of 1963. Route 2 no longer operates, but that was quite interesting because it was one of the few places, well, the only place I could find in La Spezia where you could get a view of the sea. If you climbed up this staircase to the right here. And this was on the line from Muggiano to Cadimare. This is at the Cadimare end of the route. Now to Genova. Genova is still with us, of course, even though the routes that I photographed in 1970 are not. They had a fine selection of 3-axle trolleybuses with different types of bodywork. I believe this is one with Piaggio bodywork, but I think it is. And it tells you it's outside the hospital. This is another variety of their 3 axles, all Alfa Romeo. And in the city centre, this is yet another variety of 3-axle Alfa Romeo. I know that Claudio is in the audience and he will know the names of the bodywork, and I have it written down, but I can't find it at the moment. And so the last system on our grand tour of Italy is San Remo, which sadly closed officially last year, although no trolleybuses had run for 3 or 4 years. The route was through San Remo to Taggia at one end and down to the almost very near the French border at Ventimiglia at the other end. So here's one coming in from Taggia, about to enter a short section of single track wiring on the route to San Remo. In San Remo itself, in the area of rather grand hotels, this is one of their Fiat 2401s of 1954. And we end with a view leaving, it's just left the Ventimiglia terminus, heading back to San Remo. And if you go a few kilometers further west from here, you get to the French border. So thank you for your kind attention, and I hope you enjoyed this tour around Italy as much as I did showing it to you, and indeed travelling there 55 years ago. Thank you.